So, next we have Mike Bedenbaugh. Mike's a South Carolina native, historian, and a preservation development consultant. From 2007 to just earlier this year, he served as chief executive of the nonprofit group Preservation South Carolina, which is South Carolina's only statewide preservation organization. For his work that he did with that group, he actually was awarded the Order of the Palmetto, the state's highest civilian award, by Governor McMaster. So, Mike, I'll let you have it.
Thank you, Lyndon. Thank you, Donovan, for putting data where we all instinctually know is true. We appreciate that. And thank you all for showing up. It's so wonderful to be here in Aiken and having a house full of smiling faces, wanting to engage and make things happen better for the community. For those who don't know, for the past almost 20 years, I have been involved with Palmetto Trust for Historic Preservation, also known as Preservation South Carolina. I have spent my life beyond that working with trying to do what we can to save place. So what I wanted to do tonight was kind of show the experience that I've had personally within the organization and examples of how challenging buildings make sense to be redone. Preservation South Carolina was formed for one specific purpose, to try to ensure the built environment. This is a house that was in Anderson, South Carolina, this Chinese Chippendale built in 1850s, this amazing, unique building, and turn them into things like this. I would like to say that anybody who likes to think about original materials and heart pine, that Chinese Chippendale railing, almost 95% of it is right there. So it is amazing success. Another one, Palmetto Compress. This was in Columbia, in the Vista area, and years ago it was built as a cotton bale warehouse. And a group about 25 years ago had purchased it for the purpose of preserving it. It was called Palmetto Compress Preservation Group because the family that had owned it, it had gone into disuse. They didn't have any reason for it. And the group that bought it promised, we will take care of it and use it as a storage facility. Well, after 25 years, they decided to sell it, and the group got together and sold it to a developer. It's near USC to be turned into housing. They planned on demolishing the building and build, this is downtown Columbia, to build walk-up 3-story housing like motel-looking buildings. And we went to work. It took us a year and a half, but that's what it ended up becoming. These things are worth fighting for. And this was, talk about a challenge. This is 370,000 square feet. And if anybody's familiar with historic tax credits, you have to restore buildings based on certain architectural demands that the National Park Service requires. This building, you see the angle on the roof line, how it, well, that reflects in the floors. All the floors were angled like that. And the reason it was because it cut down on their labor when they could winch the big cotton bales up, but it only took one guy in a little cart to roll a whole cotton bale down the slope to the loading dock. So that had to be overcome, and it was. And there we go. This is a Curtis Wright hangar, also in Columbia. This was a building that Amelia Earhart landed in. It's called the Curtis Wright hangar because one of the Wright brothers, Orville maybe, started a company leveraging his notoriety of being the first man to fly into a company to build hangars for communities to have airports. And this was one of the last ones left in the country. Poor place. I mean, what do you do with a building like this? It was owned by the county. They didn't know how to get rid of it. There was a certain sense that they couldn't put it in private hands. There was no way the county or the public could do anything with it. It had to go into private hands. Preservation South Carolina came in and said, well, let's put an easement on it that would protect the old public investment. And the county went for it. We put the easement on it. And that's it now. Right there. Alive and filled. So whenever I hear challenges, that this building is too challenging, I never buy it. Very rarely. Here's rule number one. Old buildings in South Carolina that are deteriorated and underused are a reflection of dysfunctional owners and not inherent dysfunction in the building. Now, I say that in South Carolina because when we visit our preservation friends up in Michigan and the Northeast Rust Belt, they look at us and go, our old buildings can't be restored, because of so many people moving away. There's a huge problem up there. However, we don't have that excuse here in this state. We're blessed to have a lot of people wanting to move here. Many of you are in here because you moved down here. We don't have that excuse here. Here's an example. This is Newry Mill. Newry Mill, this picture I took when I first became on with Preservation South Carolina in 2007. I heard about this mill. You got to come up and see it. It's been empty 30 years. Went up there. This is where it looks like right here in a little mill village surrounded by 3,000-acre nature preserve, isolated out in the middle of nowhere, it seems. Mostly absentee owners and low rental properties, and the mill was almost in ruin. But look at the bigger map. 15-minute drive to the Clemson campus. And everybody just gets all stuck up in the fact that it's out in the middle of nowhere. No, you got 15 minutes. What happened was, why this place looked like this was because you see Lake Kiowee right up above it? The gentleman who bought the mill, he bought it because his mother worked there and he had a lot of emotional thing. But what he really wanted was the fact that the old mill had a relationship with Duke Power, that Duke Power would always supply water to that mill, and that pipe was still there. He had the idea that he was going to develop along Lake Hartwell using all this free water. Duke Power heard about it, and what did they do? Poured concrete down the pipe. It sat, and it sat. The gentleman passed away. His son had it. Took another 10 years to convince him. Buyers went. Then we had the roof half burn off because bored 14-year-olds in Seneca just like starting bonfires in an empty building. And we finally found a developer, and now this was taken 2 years ago when we went there to start doing the tax credit survey for it. That's what it looked like inside. That's what it looks like 6 months ago. Being totally redeveloped, $70 million project where that is being built, and in the background, we turn on my little red eye thing right there, is more apartment buildings being built. And this is what it's going to look like in probably about a year and a half. And next door is the old store. Now they're putting investment in that too. And that's what it will look like when it's done. This place sat here for years. This was the biggest sore spot in our organization because it was a mill that was so gorgeous, so open, so abused, and now it's being done. I don't accept excuses that it's too far gone. In most cases. Rule number 2, actions by investors, owners, or development groups are not always being driven by local economics or goals. Now, they always have money involved. They're doing it for the economics of their own business, but is it in the local business sustainable best practice? I'm showing this picture. This is a house that was in Newberry called Oakhurst. Designed by a man named Nerncy. He was the son of the man who designed our current State House. His firm designed the Smithsonian Castle. It was in all these architectural books. I had an architectural historian visit us in the 1990s, and he rode by and go, oh, I saw that in my textbook. Oh my gosh, that's Nerncy's house. Amazing building. That's what it looks like now. The reason it looks like this is because Ecker Drugs had a pro forma that they wanted to invest in properties that was across from CVS's. So corporate Ecker Drugs were then buying up all these corner lots. If you go to Travelers Rest, you'll go into Travelers Rest. There's a fork across from the CVS drug. There was a house there. Ecker Drugs went there. I know of 4 places where they tore down old buildings downtown to be next to CVS. Why did they do that? because they wanted to have their performers look better competition with CVS, showing expansion of the marketplace, hitting their biggest competitor so they could sell. They sold, and within a year, Eckerd Drugs was an empty building. Walgreens did happen to come here. They were only there 5 years. It's been sitting here empty now for 10 years. So you can't necessarily believe that people that come in and say they're doing development, they're thinking about the sustainable economic development that you need. It's about corporation and bottom line for boardrooms, Charlotte, Atlanta, New York, Wall Street, all of those things. That has to be thought about. Rule number 3, it takes a lot of work, dedication, and patience to overcome the challenges of rules 1 and 2. You know what that is? That's the Aiken Hospital. 3 years ago, that's what was put up on all the signs that people thought that would be better to have. I remember coming down to the public hearing, October 2019. Go on, I don't know if you've been on there in a while, but go on the Revive Aiken Hospital Facebook page and look at 3 years ago, and you will see the exact same arguments that everybody's doing now about the Aiken Hotel. Showing pictures of all these other buildings that's been done. Thankfully, all of that pushback was able to stop it from being torn down. And lo and behold, what they said that couldn't be done has been done. It's been purchased by a developer named John Gumpert. He's a friend of mine. I've known him for 20 years. I was on the phone with him 30 minutes ago. And they expect to have this place redeveloped within 1 to 2 years, recession, housing, whatever happens with funding, and have 200 market rate apartments in this building. They're going to build new stuff in behind it. But think about that, 200 new market rate buildings. So I hope this kind of gives a reflection that when people say it can't be done, that too much stuff is gone, there's other interests at hand and you have to really dig in, and all these examples are here. John's also doing Vaucluse and Warrenton, 120 apartments in both of them. Is going to be in both of them 2 to 3 years. You're looking at 440 new market rate apartments within 10 minutes drive of Aiken. What's that going to do to you downtown? What type of, because that's what people, exactly what Donovan's talking about. That's what drives these people here. They'll come here, and anybody that wants to get a market rate apartment in this place, where are they going to want to come and what do they want to see? They want to see exactly what you already have. So, thank you. So, rule number 4, forgot that, sorry. All engineers and architects are not the same. This is really important because this is what you hear all the time. The engineer said it can't be saved. It'll cost so much money. Well, here's the thing we have to remember. I don't understand why we accept the fact that doctors are specialists. You don't go to a foot doctor to find out about what's going on with your tumor or heart condition. We expect that. Well, engineers are the same. And unfortunately, we have a corporate professionalism that's happened over the past 40 years in engineering, architects, banking, where most of the money is in new built things and most people are trained to know how to do that. They don't know how to read old buildings. So that's why we brought in Craig Bennett with Preservation South Carolina, came and looked at the building, and this is my favorite picture where he is showing everybody, talking about the foundation and how the foundation was reported to be so bad, and Craig's saying, this foundation's perfectly good. Of course it could hold this place up. So that was exciting. Let me see, boom. So thank you for your time. Thanks for the opportunity to share this with y'all, and I'll leave it to Linda.